If you're a closer that has ever come off their call and thought to themselves, that should have closed, then this video is for you. I'm going to be walking you through the exact framework that I have used to go from zero sales experience to collecting over $20,000 in commission and closing over $56,062 in a single day. This is the exact structure that you need in order to finally feel confident behind your process. To begin with, of course, we have the introduction to your call. Now, I want you to have a particular frame of mind when you're first opening the conversation, and that is to speak like an old friend and have on a late night DJ voice. Now, what do I mean by this? Imagine the prospect jumping onto this call is somebody who you used to be best friends with, and it's been a long time since you've caught up and had a chat. Put that image inside of your mind right before they join the call, and then give that energy and give that aura. When it comes to your tonality, I want you to slow down. I want you to lower your tone. Think of when you're in the car and you hear that late night DJ playing some smooth jazz on the radio, introducing a song. That is the pace, that is the tonality that you want to have and hold on your call, because it will calm the room and it will also embody certainty. It won't embody panic. It won't embody anxiety. It will put the prospect into a calmer state, and it will also provide you as a figure of authority. It will give you that presence. Now, diving into the framework itself, of course, to open the call, simple, hey, can you hear and see me? All good. Make sure that's a check. Now, no need for any rapport building. Save that for the end of the call, once they're working out payment, once you're figuring out the contract, vice versa. No, where are you living at the moment? How's the weather? How are you? This isn't a black or white binary. If you happen to want to build some rapport at the start and have a conversation like that, it will not have a dramatic impact on whether the deal closes or not. Granted, you run the rest of the call correctly and appropriately. However, it is unnecessary, and there is a limited amount of time that you now have with this prospect, so make the most of it for their sake. So, hey, can you hear and see me? All good? Pleasure, my good friend. Welcome into the call. Before we dive in, do you have the full 60 minutes available for this? Are there any hard stops I should be made aware of? Now we're just doing a clean time check. Make sure you've got that full hour allotted and that there's not going to be any interruptions or them suddenly having to jump off on the hour. If they do say they only have that 60-minute block and then a hard stop for the meeting, you know to run the process very concisely in case you have to handle objections towards the back end. Now, here's where we frame the call. And you will likely hear mixed opinions in the space as to whether this is necessary. I have found it once again is prospect dependent, but for the most part, run a frame, run an agenda. It really won't push an individual away. The only time in which it wouldn't be necessary is if they've already been hard set, triaged, or implied to yourself that they've been on multiple sales calls like this similarly in the past. At that point, maybe best to avoid the frame, as you don't want to be associated with previous poor closers that they may have dealt with. However, for the most part, this is to really just get you both aligned as to how the conversation's going to run, and it will avoid interruptions or them asking you to jump straight to the pitch, because you're setting the ground rules. You're setting yourself up as a consultant, and this is how you run your operations. So great. So, I mean, what I've found works best on these calls is, for starters, just getting to know your situation a bit better firsthand. So we can figure out what your goals are, what it is that you're trying to achieve. And after our conversation, if we're both confident that this is the right next step for you, then I'd be more than happy to walk you through how we help people like yourself. Regardless, I will still always try and point you in the best direction that I can. Is that cool? You want this to be lackadaisy, loose. You do not want this to be rigid. That is how frames fall short and how they can have a negative reaction. If you read this like a robot and like a script, and that you are about to push this individual down a treadmill of questions, that is the vibe you give off, then of course they're not going to respond well. If you do it lackadaisy, off the cuff, you don't need to say it word for word. Just set that clean agenda. That is how this will work best. Now, from here, we go into the logical discovery. Now, I opt for compassion, then coaching. What I mean by this is we want to build leverage and clarity before anything else. You don't want to dive directly into deep-rooted identity or emotion off the bat before you actually have clarity on the current situation or circumstance. You want to do this in phases or stages. Now, the best way to open the call is awesome. So, in your own opinion, what is the specific outcome that you're looking to achieve from starting X right now? So this can be any form of coaching, business opportunity, agency, any biz op can easily fit in with this wordage. Of course, just replace where I say the word X. Now from here, the reasoning behind this is you want to open by gaining what is their goal? What is their specific outcome? Why are they here in the first place is what this question will then answer. From here, they're going to usually give you two answers, because reasonably, these are the only two things that starting a new business or investing into themselves through this avenue is going to provide them. That's time or money. It's one or the other, more money or more flexibility and freedom with their time. Now, of course, you can go down two paths here. If they were to give you time, now we want to gain more clarity. And of course, this is a framework. This is not a script. So whenever the prospect gives you a piece of information, you now tree branch off that piece of information with what I call filler questions. So as an example, the specific outcome they're looking to achieve is they want to have more time freedom and flexibility in their life. So I suppose time in what sense? Well, in what way have you not got freedom in your life now? How long has that been going on for? Gain clarity on what they mean by having more time. They will then give you pain, and they will then begin to build the gap between their current situation and the place they want to be naturally through their answers. So currently they don't get to spend X amount of time with their children, and they want to start a new business so that they can then have more flexibility and freedom of their time and then spend it with their child. That's a lot more powerful than I just want to have more time in the day. What does that really mean? Clarity is so important. So make sure that you are diligent and do not push someone through this line of questioning until you have a full, clear understanding of their current circumstance, what they're missing out on, and where they really want to be in life. Now from here, you can quite easily push someone down the track in a sense of if they say they want more time or freedom in their life, well, in order for us to have that freedom, we usually need to be making more money. So that this even makes sense, like where would you say you need to be in terms of income on a monthly basis so that you can achieve that goal of being able to spend more time with the children and get this back in your life? Now from here, of course, if they were to say money, very similar thing, clarifying questions, what will making more money allow them to do? What's the significance behind being able to do that? But regardless, you're always going to stem down to getting a tangible metric so that we can achieve said aim. How much do we need to be making? Because from here, we can actually set that initial goalpost. Now, let's say I need to replace my current income in my 9 to 5 so that I can then support the family still, but of course have more control over where I spend my hours. Okay, so I suppose how much are you making currently from the job? X amount. Okay, so would you say that we need to be making XYZ in order to replace that? Yeah. And is there a reason kind of behind that amount specifically why you've set that for yourself? Gain further clarity, gain further detail. What is it that you even currently do for work? Now, of course, I've asked that in an uneven order, as again, it's a framework. But really what we're doing here, specific outcome, we've gotten their goal, what they're looking to achieve and attain. We've gathered why they want to achieve that. We've already begun to build pain and build the gap between their current circumstance and where they are. Now we're going to gain clarity on what they are currently doing for work, because, as I said, we are gaining leverage in the conversation here. So they'll walk you through what they're currently doing for work, how much they're making per month at the moment from that. Is that enough? How many hours are they having to work to produce that level of income? Do they enjoy it? Now, from here, there's two different trees we can go down. Either they dislike their job, and then we ask clarifying questions. What's the problem with it? What specifically about that problem bothers you? Imagine I'm like a fly on the wall at your work. Give me an example of when XYZ happened. Have them emotionalize and tell you a tale of perhaps how they hate their boss and he told them off for XYZ something. Get them to be present in the moment of the fact they don't enjoy their job. Of course, if they say they like their job, what's the reason then behind wanting to pivot into this rather than just sticking with your job or business and getting the outcome from there? Here, they're going to explain to you how perhaps they like their job, but it could never make them the amount of money that they really want to be making. It could never really give them the amount of time, flexibility, or freedom that they're after. What you want to do really is, once again, build the gap and do so in a manner of you're leaning out. Well, I'm a little bit confused. If you enjoy the job and you mentioned it's making you enough money, like what's the real reason behind wanting to do this then? Have them answer for themselves. Don't ever push the sale onto somebody or make statements at them. Always ask open-ended questions. For the most part, if you can transform any statement into a question, figure out a way to do so, and I can guarantee you will close more sales. Now from here, of course, you can ask, so is your end goal eventually to leave your 9 to 5 or pivot out of the current business? We've gained all the clarity, pain, and built as much of a gap as we need. So we know what their specific goal is. We know what their current circumstance is. We know what they're missing out on and what they're looking to attain. Timeline. How long has this been the goal for you to achieve specific outcome? So in an example here, it wouldn't be how long has it been the goal for you to start Forex trading? No. You never make this question about the offer or the service itself. You focus this question on the broader outcome that they've been after. So how long has it been the goal for you to be able to make XYZ amount of money so that you could then have more freedom and flexibility in your life and spend that time with your children? How long has that been the goal for you? Well, I've wanted to do that for most commonly years, they will say, because who wouldn't want that? Essentially, that's a very deep-rooted goal that I'm sure most people would want in their life. So now you're going to get a broader timeline by utilizing this question in a very powerful way. So now we've got a timeline here. So before you found us, what have you actually done over the last 3 years to try and achieve this? So now we're going to gain context on what their specific goal is, the importance behind it, how long that's been a goal for, and what they've tried up to now in order to achieve said goal, given how important it is for them. They're either going to say nothing or something. If they say nothing, with you wanting to spend more time with your children and have this freedom for the last 3 years, like, how come you've not tried anything? Notice how I say, how come you've not tried anything? Do not use the word why. Only use the word why in very particular circumstances, because that is a confrontational word. Naturally, it will heighten someone's defensiveness. Think of 2 different ways of wording this sentence. With you wanting to do this over the last 3 years, why haven't you done anything? Compared to, with you wanting to do this for the last 3 years, how come you've not tried anything? One naturally sounds less oppressive And there is a psychology behind that. When you ask a why question, it actively puts the full onus of responsibility onto the individual's shoulders. Whereas if you say, how come, or what stopped you from trying anything up to now, that's enabling a level of externalization. And it allows somebody to feel less defensive and therefore more forthcoming with the answer that they provide, which you can then dig into. That's a little bit of a deeper level to get into, but for the most part, just try and avoid why questions and come up with ways to word it using the term how or what. Now, we've figured out how long it's been a goal for them to achieve specific outcome. We know why that's important to them. And now we're figuring out beforehand what they've tried to achieve something. If they say nothing, let's gain clarity on why they haven't tried anything. If they say they've tried something, well, how did that go for you? Have they actually really put anything into practice and actually actioned this? Or has it just been research? If it's been only research, what kept us stuck in this research phase then? What we're really doing here is building context as to what has held them back from already achieving this aim, given it's been an aim of theirs for X length of time. So now we're going to go down this path. Okay, so being that we've yet to reach our goals, have you ever invested into a high-level training program or worked with a one-on-one mentor to help you fix this issue? Now, this is tying in to, of course, what they're doing on this call in the first place. However, you will notice we are not correlating this to ourselves. Once again, we are correlating this to them. The onus of responsibility is still on them, which it always needs to be. Now, from here, they will say a couple things. Now, of course, one can be they haven't looked into anything before. And this is where we begin a reframe on them. And from here, we're going to go into an identity reframe, regardless of what they say. Because the simple psychology behind this, and I will consistently reiterate myself, but it is for your benefit. We begin the call, specific outcome, clarity on specific outcome, why it's important and how it contrasts to their current situation. How long have they had the goal to achieve specific outcome? Given the fact it's been a goal of theirs to achieve specific outcome for X length of time, what have they tried in the past in order to achieve it? Why has that not worked? That's it. Those are the 5 fundamentals that we need to take somebody through. So if you can just write 5 things down on a piece of paper, that's the baseline of what you really need to know. This frame just helps you to walk somebody through that process to get them to that point. Now from here, why have they not achieved said outcome, given the fact it's been a goal of theirs for X length of time? We are either going to get an external or an internal reason. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, an external reason means something that you do not have direct control over. So it could be, well, I didn't have the time, I didn't have the finances or the money to invest into myself. I didn't know this existed. What else? Of course, it wasn't the right time. There's all sorts. I thought everything was a scam. I'm waiting to find the right person or opportunity. All of these externalizations are somebody saying the reason was not myself. It was something else. It was money. It was time. What we need the individual to do is to take responsibility and own up to the internal limitation and reason as to why they have yet to achieve their goals. Because if we continue allowing this individual to externalize the reason as to why they're in their current circumstance, then they will not have the autonomy and conviction to actually change that circumstance. Because if the reason as to why they're there isn't themselves, then themselves cannot be the reason that actually changes things. I hope that makes sense. So what we are now here to do is to reframe an externalization that they give to get them to own up to the internal limitation and reason. Now, of course, inside of my community, we go into all of this in a lot more depth. This is the baseline framework that you are going to need to consistently push your commission up to that $20,000 per month mark. However, if you do want to gain a much deeper understanding of sales psychology and also get involved in a great community of individuals that are all on a similar path and journey, then I've got links attached in the description. So you can head straight to my Instagram, shoot me a message on there, and we'll arrange a conversation, or head straight to that booking link and book yourself in a call. Now, as you can see, as we head into the identity reframe, we can ask a broader question. Okay, so the person you want to be and what you want to accomplish in your life, why hasn't this happened yet? Like, let's look at it together. It's a collaborative approach. You don't necessarily always need to ask this question. Once again, the limitation could have come up earlier at some point, and whenever that limitation comes up, whether it's an external reason or they immediately jump to an internal reason, we go straight to a reframe from there. We don't need to always ask these same questions. I cannot reiterate that enough. Now, as you can see, members of my community actually receive all of the different reframes that you could possibly go through. I am not going to cover all of those on this video because that could be an entire separate video in itself. However, what you will now do is understand how to reframe an external reason that the individual gives and have them understand your perspective so that they agree externalizing their problem will not serve them. And if they continue to do so, it's going to cause them bigger issues in the future. And the real reason is predominantly fear. That's what it stems to. Because a lack of resourcefulness in relation to time or money just comes from a lack of importance and priority. You would not make the time if somebody came to your front door with a check for $1 million and said, if you get there in 5 minutes, you can take it. Because the outcome is guaranteed. So of course you'd take the effort to run to your door to receive the $1 million. The problem is your success and results in life are never guaranteed. The only person who's responsible for that is yourself. So usually it's the fear of failure. It's the fear of losing money that actually holds individuals back from ever making the concerted effort or change in order to change their circumstance. Now, from here, you will have the internal reason. So they will admit to you, yes, looking at it, dude, honestly, I've just been scared to lose money. I've just been scared that this is actually going to fail. That's why I haven't made the time or got the funds together to invest. Now, from here, we can take them down this path. So see, that level of introspection is so refreshing because most people go about their lives having surface level conversations. I suppose, like, where do you think that fear actually stems from? We want to always punish or reprimand and call out bad behavior, which is behavior that we're aware doesn't serve the individual. However, we always want to reward good behavior, and owning up and being forthcoming to you that they've been held back by fear is a very powerful thing for them to do. It will likely make them feel quite uncomfortable. So you have to reward that behavior for them by that statement there. That level of introspection is so refreshing because these surface level conversations are actually going to move the needle forward. Like, where do you think that fear actually comes from? We're going to gain some deep rooted clarity here. That fear likely could have stemmed right the way from childhood. It could have stemmed from a previous failure, a previous scam, a previous traumatic event, and this will be powerful clarity for us to gain. Now we are going to take them down what is commonly known as a Dickens pattern. The reason why it's called that, Charles Dickens, Christmas, past, present, and future. So we'll with that in mind, then, do you feel like if you keep holding on to that fear, that you'll ever be able to get to your goals when it comes to the life you want to live now? Or, like, do we need to make some changes? They're, of course, going to say, no, like, we need to make some changes. What do you feel holding on to that fear has actually cost us over the last 3 years? Now we're going to gain the cost of the fear in the past, what this has actually accumulated to. You can even quantify this if you like. So if they're looking to start a business and they mentioned they want to be making $8,000 per month earlier on, you could get a timeline, pull out your phone, type in 8 times 36 if it was 3 years, and then show them the number. Gosh, well, with you saying that you want to make $8,000, and I suppose, like, do you believe you're the individual who is actually capable of doing that when they apply themselves? Yes. Gosh, well, in that case, then, given the fact we've allowed that fear to stop us from even starting to have the opportunity, it's cost us this much. That can be very good for logical prospects when you really quantify the numbers to them as to what fear has cost them logistically, potentially. For more emotional prospects, you don't necessarily even need to do that. They will be very forthcoming with what this fear has cost them, opportunity, a number of things in their life. I suppose, like, how does it make you feel that you've actually missed out on all of that because you've allowed that fear to slow you down? Purposeful question, because we are putting the responsibility onto them. They have allowed the fear to slow them down. The fear hasn't been this oppressive external source. It's been internal, and they have allowed that to happen up to this point. We want to make that clear. And gosh, like, what do you feel will happen if you continue to hold on to that fear? Now we're heading into the future here. So we've had them affirm that the fear has cost them X, Y, Z. They have to let go of the fear in the present now in order to achieve their aims. And if they don't let go of that fear, it's going to cost them X, Y, Z in the future. So I suppose, like, in that case, then, with you being sick and tired of feeling like you're not living up to your full potential, who do you need to become so that you can actually get the results you and your family deserve? Once again, very particular language. Who do you need to become? Because what we are now doing is instilling an identity separation. We are taking their current identity, the one that's led them to this very point, onto the call with yourself, and their future identity, the one who is actually capable of achieving their aims, achieving the goals that they've wanted for X length of time. So now what they're going to say is they need to become this new individual. They need to overcome fear. Identity is now separated. Are you sure you want to? Yeah, no, of course I want to. Why are you now ready to step into these shoes, though? Because you've allowed that fear to hold you back for the last 3 years. This is where a why question serves its purpose, because you want this to be direct. You want this to hit hard and be meaningful. So we save the why question till now. And this is how we build urgency. This is how we avoid your prospects getting to the end of the call and saying they need to take more time or they need to think about it. Because now we have them affirm that they need to change now and they're ready and prepared to do so. But we do it in a manner where, once again, we lean out. Well, why are you not ready, though? Because you've allowed this fear to hold you back for X length of time. Like, what's actually changed? We're getting them to build their own position as to why things cannot continue and that a change needs to occur. From here, we go into the vision, which is the new and improved version of themselves. Okay, so when you now overcome this fear and we get you to the point where you are making £8,000 per month and you're able to have more flexibility and control in your life and spend that time with your children, that version of you that's already achieved that, what's different about that Dan? What kind of actions does he take? What kind of habits does he have? Like, what kind of values does he stand on? As you can see here, the reason as to why this is so powerful is we are not future pacing or goal setting their ideal life. It's not, okay, so when you now take this step and you're making $8,000, £8,000 per month, gosh, what will life look like? What will be different? Nobody really cares, because that's an imaginary concept in and of itself. And it's also has a lot less meaning. It's, oh yeah, well, I'll have a Lamborghini and I'll be in a penthouse in Brickell, Miami, and I'll be able to pay for this and pay for that and have more time. Great. What's more powerful? Thinking of all these nice things, or when you now overcome this deep-rooted emotional block that has ruled your life and held you back for X length of time, and you now get to this point where you can spend more time with your family, that version of you that's achieved that, what's different about that version of yourself? Like, what kind of actions does he take? What kind of habits does he have? Once again, throat's getting a little dry. Once again, what we're doing is identity separation. We are having them reaffirm they have not been the identity they need to be up to this point. And it's going to feel so empowering and amazing when they now overcome this fear and now step into this new identity. And these are the new habits and values that they're going to uphold in order to maintain that success. This is why this has so much more power. When you imagine that version of yourself, the one we are now stepping into becoming, how clear is the image in your mind right now? Like, let's just say a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being it's bright, it's clear, you can see it right in front of you. 1 being you can't really see it at all, like it's clouded with this fog of fear still. Where are we? Very important and powerful question here. What we are doing is, number 1, having them visualize, which triggers more of an emotional response. We are emphasizing the one we are now stepping into becoming, this new version of themselves, which instigates urgency. And of course, once again, that now is the moment they are doing so. We're also using very emotive language here. How clear is the image? Bright and clear, clouded with fog, visual, emotional. It ties them into this present moment. And then we're quantifying it with a 1 to 10 scale. The reason why we do this is because this can gauge certainty in the individual. If they say 4 out of 10, then you know they still lack a lot of confidence and conviction in themselves that they can even achieve the aim. If they say 10 out of 10, fantastic. They're far more closer towards the position we need them to be in order to make a purchase and take that step forward. So when you get to this level, no matter what the individual says, you are looking for them to say 10 out of 10. And if they do not, there's a very easy way to change their perspective on this. So let's say the individual says, I'm an 8 out of 10. Okay, I would ask, well, what's gotten you to that 8 out of 10? What's taken you from a 1 up to that 8? They're going to clarify their positives, their certainty. What is it that we're missing then for that last 2, for you to be that 10 out of 10? They're going to clarify the gap. Now, we bring this down to more of a psychological perspective. And I always use the example of a fighter. Well, look, in order for you to actually build confidence in something firsthand, what do you need to do? Well, you need to actually try, of course, right? And I would never feed them the answer, have them answer as best you can. However, you need to try something and then learn from your mistakes, and then you build confidence over time, right? However, let's use this as an example. Let's say there were 2 fighters stepping into a ring, and one fighter, neither of them know how the fight's going to go, whether they're going to win, what their opponent's going to do. But one fighter, before he's even stepped into the ring, tells himself he's got a 10 out of 10 chance of success. And the other fighter thinks to himself he's got an 8 out of 10. Who actually has a higher probability of winning the fight from the start alone? They'll say the 10 out of 10. How come? Because he believes in himself, he's imagining victory. And if you tell yourself that you're an 8 out of 10, then what out of 10 results are you setting yourself up for? They'll say 8 out of 10 results. And is that the level of results that you're really after? No. So can you see how it would serve you more and give you the highest probability chance of success if you instilled that conviction into yourself before we've even started? Yes. You can even go down this reframe here. So Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. The fun thing about believing is that it's a simple choice. You get to choose what you believe. So the question is, do you want to have the belief that you can go and achieve that for yourself? Or do you want to believe that you can't and just never achieve it? They'll say, no, I want to believe I can. Well, are you willing to believe that you can? So what level out of 10 are you going to tell yourself right here, right now? 10 out of 10. And you're not just saying that to fit the conversation. Do you actually see where I'm coming from? Do you actually mean that? Yes. Now can you see how we're getting them to buy in so strongly already into becoming this new version of themselves, into becoming somebody who has to step over fear, who has to take fast action, who has to make this present moment the moment of change? This is how we are pre-handling any objections from coming up towards the back end of the conversation. Now from here, we go into the consequence. And this is really the point of the conversation, that you need to sit in the discomfort as we head toward the pitch. And this is the back end of the discovery. Now, look, that's a beautiful goal. And I really want you to be able to make that a reality for yourself and your family. But to actually make that happen, it requires you stepping up and doing something different, right? They say yes. Now, on the other side of the coin is you don't make any changes. And I like to ask these challenging questions because the people that can normally sit with me and answer them go on to do well on the inside and then achieve the goal that they're looking for. So for yourself, think about the last 3 years that have gone by. What happens if you do continue allowing this fear to have a hold on you? And gosh, let's just say another 1, 5, 30 years of time pass by and you actually remain that version of yourself. We're still in the same spot. What would life look like? Now we're getting them to visualize and picture their future if they continue allowing the fear, which they have done up to this point, to hold them back from making a change, and what that future and reality would actually be. And of course, it's going to be negative. So they're going to say, I won't be able to achieve this. I won't be able to provide this. Maybe they'll even go even deeper, straight to a deep-rooted emotion. Gosh, I'll be depressed. I'll be unfulfilled. Pain, pain, pain. All of this is going to lead to lighting that fire that they need to elicit change and to buy at the end of the call. So if they remain that version of themselves, not if they don't buy this program. As you can tell, I haven't mentioned the program or the coaching service or the mentorship once, because the onus isn't on the program. The onus is on the individual. That's what this call is about. And that is what's going to allow them to have the biggest and most dramatic change in their life. And that's what your job is as a closer. This is how to have truly powerful conversations. And this is how to close at an elite level. Now from here, you're going to gain the pain. You're going to gain the consequence of them not changing. You can go into a deserve syntax. So a little bit of an advanced way of diving into this, you can use the word provide when you're speaking with men, or the word give when you're speaking with women, because genders respond differently to certain term choices dependent on their, I suppose, the role that they pose on themselves. I hope you understand that. So keeping it simple, do you believe that your wife or your kids deserve a husband or a father who doesn't allow fear to hold him back and is fully present and able to provide for them? He's like, well, yeah, of course they deserve that. Do you think they deserve to see someone who actually does lead by example? As you can see here, what we're doing, they've just described this very negative future if they don't step into this new identity. We're taking that emotion and we're now tying it to how it will impact others, how it will impact the family if they don't make this change. And we're using the term deserve because, of course, they're not going to say that their family deserves to not have this positivity in their life, which puts the responsibility onto them to actually do this and to actually change. And of course, from here, as a man, even as a woman, this still works very effectively. Do you think they deserve to see someone who leads by example? Because what does someone who leads by example do? They lead, they take decisions themselves, they take responsibility, they don't need to speak to their partner, they don't need to take time. We're pre-handling objections very carefully with the questions that we use. They're just used in a very tactful way. They're not obvious. And besides them, like, do you believe you deserve to become this new version of yourself? Think about how powerful that question is. Because people may not realize, but subconsciously and fundamentally, they may not have felt that they deserved success, and therefore they've been holding themselves back from it. So this question can hit very powerfully at times. Yeah, like, I deserve success. I deserve this in my life. Are you willing to settle for remaining the same and seeing that future you just described if we don't change and don't overcome this fear? No. Why not? Once again, powerful why question here. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that that doesn't happen? It's my responsibility. And you can't just say that. Like, you have to really mean it. No, it's my responsibility, of course. So are you ready to draw this line in the sand so that when you are older, you can look back at this very moment today and say that this was the day that everything changed? This final question, once again, draw that line in the sand, is a visual sentence. It creates a picture in their mind, which ties to an emotion, so that when you're older, you can look back at this very moment today and say that this was the day that everything changed. Drives it home that this right here on this call, this present moment, is a time where decision has to be made and change has to be instilled. They will say, yes, I am ready to draw that line in the sand. So would you like our help with that so that we can do this together? End it with a collaborative approach before you head into the pitch. Now, I hope this has been helpful. I tried to make this video quite extensive, as you can probably tell, and dive into a lot of depth for you in terms of going through the framework itself and walking you through the thought process, the thinking behind why you're asking these questions. As one thing I want to make abundantly clear, a framework is all well and good. Having a script when you are a closer and an understanding of one will definitely help. However, if you don't have the fundamental understanding of why you are asking certain questions and what the framework is actually here to achieve, then you won't be able to serve the prospect and you won't close at a high level. If you are interested in leveling up your sales skills further and boosting your commission to new record heights, then head to the links in my description. I run a sales community, Congruent Closers, where we uplift each other and we focus on not only core fundamental sales skills, but external habits that are actually going to lead you to deep-rooted greater happiness and success. We make sure that not only you have a deep-rooted understanding of sales psychology, but you also uphold habits in your life, your health, your wellness, your fitness, your sleep. All of these will play such a huge role in not only your sales performance, but your day-to-day confidence and reduced anxiety. Please do not underestimate the power of controlled habits and having a group of individuals that can hold you accountable to that higher standard. So if that sounds of interest to you, check out that description and get in touch.